Right, gentleman's time has expired. And I recognize the gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Fortenberry.
Mr. Secretary, welcome. It's always my hope that congressional hearings have some sort of constructive outcome, and in that regard, it was discussed earlier, I believe, by Mr. Issa that a more transparent international marketplace for safety data sharing would be appropriate. In that regard as well, given that today's hearing is about Toyota safety problems, and particularly this unintended acceleration problem, which you've committed to continuing to research and work through, this has happened, though, across other car manufacturers, 2 other car manufacturers from the data that I see. Has there been any discussion about developing some type of consortium, and perhaps in partnership with NHTSA, that would actually work toward a comprehensive evaluation of this so that there could be even broader safety outcomes for the public?
Well, we try and do these things, you know, based on the complaints that we hear from people. We do these, conduct these investigations.
This gets out of our boxes, though. This is a policy consideration.
Pardon me?
This is a policy consideration.
Yeah, well,
potential change in policy.
I'll be willing to look at it, but I mean, it doesn't fit into the what we're doing now.
Should it?
I think it's something we can look at. Look, I get lots of good ideas from coming to these hearings, and it's something that, you know, I'd be happy to visit with you about and see. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's something we're going to do, because I don't know enough about what you're trying to purport here, but I'm willing to talk to you about it.
Again, what I said at the beginning, looking for constructive outcomes. That's
Absolutely.
The purity of my intention, is to maybe think creatively about this, because right now our attention has shifted to Toyota and appropriately trying to get to the bottom of these public safety issues. But again, given that this has happened across the industry, is there an opportunity here to think more creatively, policy-wise, about a common fix using the resources that we have, that, or creating some type of consortium, again, that could look at this in partnership with the government to, again, improve or make the safety outcomes of this hearing and what you're doing even
Sure.
broader applicably. That's just the policy idea I put in front of you.
I got you.
Okay. That's all I had. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to yield the additional time that I have to Mr. Issa.
You know, I'll be quick, and then Mr. Burton would like to ask a quick question. Mr. Secretary, you said that it depends on, when you evaluate something, how significant it is. But under the current system, the manufacturer doesn't give you every single complaint that occurs, so you're evaluating some and missing others. If there's a sticky pedal like this one in Great Britain, and there's some reports, unless there's a recall, you don't see it at all. Do you think that should change?
Well, look, when we go to the manufacturer and we ask them for information about complaints they've had about their vehicles, we hope they're going to be forthright with us. I mean, part of the process...
No, I appreciate that, Mr. Secretary, but the current law, they only have to tell you if there's a recall. Do you believe that it should change to where all information on like models worldwide
I think the more information,
available?
the better.
Okay, do you have the authority to ask for that and receive it from the manufacturers, or do you need authority from Congress?
We ask the manufacturers when we get complaints about certain mechanical aspects, and we assume they're being forthright with us.
Thank you. Mr. Fortenberry.
Mr. Fortenberry controls it. Right, I was telling you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll yield the remaining time to Mr. Burton.
Let me just, Mr. Secretary, this floor mechanism was made in Japan, and there hasn't been any problem with it. And this one was made in the United States. They both work on the same car. And this one is the one that they've had all the problems with. And they had to put a shim in so that there was proper clearance, so it wouldn't stick. And my question is, why is it in the same car you have 2 different mechanisms, and one's causing the problem and one isn't? It seems to me that Toyota evidently knew that there was a problem maybe with one and not the other, and this one was used in Japan and Europe, and this one was used in the United States, and this is the one that's caused the problem. Now, he just asked you a question about whether you have the authority. It seems if there's a problem any place in the world, your agency ought to be able to get that information or demand that information so that you can look at a recall here in the United States, even if it happened over in Europe someplace. And I'd like for you maybe to ask, and I'm going to ask the president of Toyota about this today, why there has this difference. So,
Would the gentleman yield?
it's his time.
Mr. Fort, no, 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 Mr. Forten, no, no, Mr. Fortenberry
Mr. Fortenberry.
controls the time.
Will the gentleman yield?
I yield the remaining time, Mr. Souter.
Here's my-
Actually, the time has expired.
Thank you.
There needs to be a there needs to
Sorry,
be a
time
fact.
is-
There needs to
gentleman's
be a
time is-
fact.
gentleman's time has expired.
Point of order. The gentleman made a somewhat factual misstatement about a manufacturer in Indiana, and I think it's important to clarify the record because we went through this once earlier. The sticky pedal, which you said correctly, the one that had a slow return, but the secretary testified that the slow return didn't have any of the deaths with it. It was the Japanese part that had the deaths. They did have to put that thing in, but there are two distinct things that happened with that pedal. And it's important that the records show that the American part, as we already established, did not cause the deaths.
Let the gentleman know that Mr. Toyota will be testifying later on, so I think that's appropriate question that could be raised with him.